Hi, this is Genoveva Rossi, and you're listening to the Balls from Ellwood show.
Hey now, cats, we're back again this week on the Balls from Ellwood show, and with me today I have a very, very special guest. She is a scream queen. She has done a ton of great films you've probably seen. Her name is Genoveva Rossi, and I want you to say hello to the audience.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for listening. And thank you so much, Mike, for having me on.
That is not a problem at all. I got so many things to get to, so many questions. I'm so appreciative to have you here today. So I'm just going to get right into it. Can you tell me a little bit about your formative years? Like, where'd you grow up? How did you start acting?
That's true. That's a good point. Let's see. My formative years and how did I start acting? Well, I grew up in the New York City area. And I started acting in nursery school when I played a ladybug in a play.
That's cute.
And I knew then this is what I want to do. No, I'm kidding.
That ladybug just sealed the deal.
Old, but I knew. And then I did some plays in grammar school, and then high school, and then college. I did some short films, and then after college, some features and things like that, and then all of a sudden I kind of got cast in this movie called Jacko Slasher, directed by Jennifer Valdez, and then I Spill Your Guts, which was my first film with Lloyd Kaufman and Deborah Rashawn.
So that was
my second film.
That was your first big break?
Yeah, I guess if we could call doing B-rated movies big break, sure. It's not like a big break like I was like cast in I don't know, like like I was cast in like some huge movie, but for B-rated it was pretty good because it was my first movie that really kind of put me on the map a little bit. It had a lot of big stars. It's a film that I'm still pretty known for. I got to, and I was first introduced to working with people like James Balsamo, Lloyd Kaufman, Deborah Rashawn, and a lot of people that I would go on to work with many, many times afterwards.
That's awesome. I mean, that's you almost developed a network early on. I mean, which is definitely helpful.
Oh yeah, and I met James Balsamo on the set of Jacko Slasher, which was my first film. So everything is about networking, and I think if you're a good person and you're a good actor, I think you'll meet people, and it just happens very naturally and organically that you end up going from job to job, and building relationships and friendships with all the people that you meet along the way. So it's like it becomes like a bunch of us pals hanging out and making a really cool movie together. It makes the process more fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of relationships, what was your relationship like with your parents growing up? I mean, did they encourage your acting career? And I mean, what did they do for a living?
Oh wow. Okay. Well, now we're going to go into maybe a little bit of a dark area. All right. I would say my parents weren't particularly encouraging of these things. I think they wanted me to go into a more practical direction. My parents, both of them are no longer with me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, they were nice people and stuff, but they wanted me to have, I think, a very stable life of maybe going after things that were more conventional. And I think that there was wisdom to that to a certain degree, because I think sometimes having your own path and being an actor or a creative person can be a very lonely and difficult life, and maybe they foresaw that,
That's probably true. I mean, that does happen to a lot of people. That's probably they just didn't want that for you.
Yeah, they might have thought maybe I'd be happier with, a more conventional life or a more conventional job and things like that. Everything has its pros and cons, and we look back on our lives, and would I have been happier if I just had gone to law school or something like that? I don't know. You just, hindsight's 20/20. You just never know. I feel like so many people live in regret of their lives. So like they get married and have kids, they regret it. They don't get married and have kids. Some people regret it. You pursue your life's ambition, and sometimes you regret it because it doesn't work out the way you thought it would. You give up your life's ambition, become a lawyer, and then maybe you regret that too. I talk with so many people, and so many people regret so many different decisions in their lives that it just seems like you never know what is the right decision. You just have to make decisions and keep moving, and not really think too much about it.
I think that's
but,
a very
yeah,
good.
so
I think that's a very good point.
My parents were very loving and good people for sure. They're no longer with me. They both, died quite a while ago, and I guess they wanted me to maybe have a more stable and practical life. And then sometimes I'm like, gee, maybe they were right about that, because sometimes acting does have its pitfalls and it has its ups and downs. And it's not really for everyone. You have to be an extremely resilient person. And we see it all the time in the news. Fame and being a celebrity and being in the entertainment industry can really destroy people.
Oh, that's true. I mean, you see it every day. I mean, that being said, when did you know that acting was going to be more than a hobby for you, and it was something that you wanted to do for like a career? Was there a defining moment?
That's a good question. When I was young, not that I'm not young now, but when I was like a little kid, I would like flip through my little magazines, like Figura and stuff, and I'd be like, one day I'd like to act in a horror movie, And I'd watch my little movies, and I'd be like, I'd like to do that. So I guess it was always kind of in my mind ever since I was a child, because I really liked all these horror movies that I was watching. And what kind of horror movies was I watching? Not the most conventional kid. I'm always like living in the past, kind of. I'm like a very retro kind of person. So I almost feel like even though I wasn't alive in these time periods, I'm very trapped in the 60s and 70s. So I really resonate. Like horror from the 60s and 70s really resonates for me. And style, fashion, decor, furniture from the 60s and 70s really resonates for me, maybe like a past life or something, So I really love like the Roger Corman films. I really like the Hammer films, and even before that, I really like the Universal Studio monster movies and stuff.
Oh, very
I don't know. A lot
classics.
of my role models are men, as crazy as it might sound. Like I really like Vincent Price and like those.
Oh my God,
stuff,
Vincent Price is like one of my favorites of all time. I could do a whole show on me and you just talk about Vincent Price.
Oh my God, I'm like obsessed with Vincent Price. Sometimes in the winter when I'm kind of bored, I watch old Vincent Price movies, and you know what? That man never disappoints.
Never.
He was a phenomenal actor, and he was like an overnight success. Like, he really fell into his niche in life. Like, he didn't really have a formal acting training, Vincent Price. It's just like he was born to act. He was cast in like a well-known play, like immediately. Then all of a sudden got all these offers to do film, but he wasn't really happy with his roles until he was like in his 50s and started doing all these horror movies and playing like the villain, that he realized he had finally come into his niche,
Oh, yeah, I mean, I would ask you what your favorite is, but as a Vincent Price fan myself, I know that'd be super hard to peg down. I mean, there's so many.
Yeah, I don't know if I could even say what my favorite Vincent Price movie is. I think really all of them are good. The wonderful thing about somebody like Vincent Price is that he's been in so many movies, like hundreds, and some of them are very cheesy, like The Tingler, and some of them are really beautiful, like Dr. Fives.
Oh, that's amongst my favorites.
His performance is always so consistent. He's fantastic in every single movie.
Yes.
Right? There's no movie
I can't think of one where even one. Yeah, I can't think of one that's even remotely not all him. I mean, it's just. just a phenomenal human being. I mean, I even almost he almost brings me to tears whenever he's in Edward Scissorhands. So I mean, geez, what does that tell you? I mean,
yeah, he was like an amazing guy. He was supposed to be a very nice guy in real life. Gave to a lot of charities and stuff.
I thought it was cool that he was a cook.
One of my older friends said he used to run into him in the Village. Vincent Price and Andy Warhol used to hang out in New York City back in the day. And he said he would hang out with just regular people in New York City, and they were very down to earth and very nice people,
Yeah,
so,
I heard that he was a renowned chef too, which I find very interesting.
Oh, and he was also a big art collector, Vincent Price.
Yeah, I mean, he was such a man of so many different interests. He was an enigma. I mean, I can't even go into it. I mean, like I said, we could do this whole show talking about what an amazing man.
Oh yeah, I'm sure Vincent Price was a very intelligent man too. And I think that's something too. Sometimes we think like acting is such an easy job that you don't necessarily have to be that bright. But I think the best actors are people that are very intelligent because they have the intelligence to fully understand the characters that they're portraying. You know,
Yeah,
but
that's a good point.
psychology.
I do believe that people get looked down upon. I've always felt that the horror community and like horror people and fans and actors and actresses, they do get kind of like pigeonholed as not that way, and like it's really not the case. I've met so many fans and people like you and actors and actresses, and we're all super bright and intelligent people, and we know what we love. I hate the fact that we get looked down upon sometimes.
Yeah, I think sometimes in the acting community that does happen because I'm very much involved in the New York City acting scene outside of horror because I've done non-horror as well, and I've also done theater, improv, a whole bunch of stuff, comedy, drama, and then I'm also in the horror scene as well. So I would think just about every actor in the New York, New Jersey area probably knows who I am, more or less, because it's such a small group in a sense. We all know each other.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes people do look down on horror, and they just think that we're all just doing like these stupid movies and whatever. But sometimes horror, is I think more difficult than mainstream or non-horror films, because you have to remember that there have been on many occasions where I'm in a film and we only have maybe one take to get the scene right. Like when I did Herschel Gordon Lewis's Blood Mania, it was a very expensive special effects scene done by David Traynor for the TV show Fargo. I had one take to get it right. Now, most actors that do drama never are under that kind of pressure.
Yeah,
they have to get a scene with heavy special effects and blood pumps right in one take. That happens a lot in the horror genre. So I would think a lot of people that are doing this drama and comedy out there, they're used to doing 10, 15 takes, may not do that well if they end up doing a horror movie. Not as well as they think they will.
That's a good point. I mean, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. There's almost like a stigma attached to it. But until I see a horror category at the Oscars, I won't even take that seriously anymore. People are just so judgmental of the genre, and it really upsets me. I mean, I've even
you don't understand until you really get into the genre, and then and there is like an audition and a selection process that's pretty intense. Like I'm working on my film. I'm directing a feature right now based on a short film called Attack of the Killer Chickens. And I was, the movie, Attack of the Killer Chickens is the movie based on the short film, and I was very careful in my casting decisions. And that's the most important, really, job as a director is to cast the right people. And because you need the right actors to really put this all together. And it's a challenging film for the actors because we're both doing horror and we're also doing comedy. And let's face it, some people just aren't funny. And they don't understand comedic timing, So, and also being in a horror-type movie and understanding the B-rated genre. So, it's very challenging to cast a movie like that with the right type of people,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how do you know that you have the right person? I mean, you just know, like...
Well, I didn't do auditions because I don't believe in the audition process. I'm not the most conventional person in the whole world. That's why I do B-rated movies. I've been in like about 100 movies or so, so I cast people that I've worked with, and I've seen them, and I know what they can do. So I cast them, and I'm going to say that I told them this all recently. I said, everybody actually did a better job than I thought they were going to do.
Oh, that's amazing. That's a kind of a different way.
So
that's
I
a different approach, but
right
it sounds like it kind of pays off.
Everybody did an even better job than I had imagined that they were capable of.
Now, I got a question for you. I asked this of all the ones that are on my show, and it's always interesting to me because everybody has a different answer. You're heralded as a scream queen. Does that label bother you, or do you embrace it? Because some people love it, and some people are offended by it.
I think it kind of gives people a little bit of a false perception of what I do. I would say, like, compared to a lot of the other people that go by the name Scream Queen, I am a bit more vanilla. Like, if you see my movies, like, I'm, like, in, like, probably over 100 movies, and only 96, 97 on IMDb. So I'm probably in, like, 120 maybe in real life. I maybe did nudity in 9 or 10.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. And my nude scenes were very vanilla. I haven't done anything particularly explicit.
I mean, is that? That would be a hard thing anyway, though. Like I'd always wondered, like, if you were in that kind of scene, Like, I mean, are you in the moment, or I mean, is it something you turn off in your head? That seems like it'd be a very difficult thing for an actor.
Oh yeah, well I'm not opposed to it. I think, and I would be open to definitely doing another nude and sex scene. I'm in negotiations right now on a few films that would have parts like that, and it just depends on like, is it a project in a film that makes sense for my career? Is it a role I really want to do? Does it make sense for the character? Blah blah blah. Things like that. All kind of come into place. You never say never. And things. It all depends. And I guess there's like a little bit of a comfort thing. It's not something that I take that lightly, though, that I just want to run around and be like naked in like every movie or whatever. I'm kind of selective.
See, I'm glad you brought that up, because there is so many different layers to it, and there is so many different, repercussions to that kind of thing. So I'm glad that, like, I think it's nice that you're like that. It's refreshing.
Oh, I think you should be selective as an actor and actress, and I think if you really want to be an artist, I think you have to be kind of open to the possibility of doing a nude or sex scene in a movie if the right movie comes along, because some of the most wonderful films that I love in any genre have nudity and sexuality, much like life. And as an artist, you're this emotional acrobat, and you have to embrace life. So you should be open to that, but it has to be like the right movie. You don't want to just go and do that for like any movie or whatever. It has to be like, somebody sends you a script, and you're like, wow, this is a great script. Wow, this is a great role. This makes sense for my character. I want to do this. It has to kind of like all kind of fit into place. So, and sometimes I feel like with the Scream Queen name, I think people sometimes think that I'm the kind of person that maybe just is like naked, running, falling. I can never quite get away from the villain. I was just falling, get killed. I think a lot of people kind of maybe have like a little bit of that stereotype, and that's not really like an accurate thing to think of what a Scream Queen is. I really think a Scream Queen nowadays really just means you're an actress that is known for the horror genre, and even it could be an actor. I know Mark Patton calls himself a Scream Queen because he's, gay, and he embraces the title too, which is totally cool.
That is cool.
So a guy could be a Scream Queen too. Well, why not? Why not?
I've seen some great horror films with. Have you ever seen Hellbent? That was an all-gay cast. That's an incredible film.
What is it?
It was called Hellbent, and it was done by like an all-gay cast, and it's all gay actors, and it's really, really good. It's like a slasher film. Really, really good film.
Oh yeah, exactly right. I think the term Scream Queen is almost like the term drag queen. Like you don't just like a drag queen doesn't mean like you just do drag. No, a drag queen means that you are the queen of doing drag. Like you've turned it into like friggin' art. Like you are like the best at what you do. And I have friends that are drag queens, so I'm gonna say it. And I go see drag queen shows every now and then. Like it's an art form. And then I think if you're a Scream Queen, truly, you are someone that takes working into horror movies and you elevate it, and it's like an art form. You are like the queen of all the actresses in horror. Like you've elevated it.
Well, that's cool. That's a good way of looking at it. I think that's the way it should be looked at.
That's how I think of it. I was at a convention a while ago at Head and Lettuce, and I had a picture. I'm like, drag queen, Scream Queen. We need a picture together. So we are a queen.
That's awesome. Hey, I got kind of a.
We're fabulous. And that's what it is too. We're both just fabulous at the end of the day. That's what it is.
Well, let me ask you this.
Are fabulous.
Let me ask you this: when you're an actress, I mean, is it hard to jump in and out of character per se? Like, what I mean is, how do you keep track of your sense of self when you're constantly playing somebody else?
Well, that's an interesting thing to think about too. But I think everybody has a transient sense of self, and your sense of self might change every day, week, year, month. We're always changing and evolving. So I think whenever you're playing these characters, if you want them to be authentic, you'll find part of yourself in that character.
I see.
I think all the characters, in a sense, are me. Or put myself into those characters.
That's interesting. I've never heard somebody answer like that. That's actually really interesting.
Yeah, I think I have a different acting philosophy than a lot of the people that go into it. Like I think for me, like I really bring myself into the moment when I act. It's like me in that film and in that moment. I'm like, this is me like killing everybody. Okay.
See, I was going to ask you what makes your acting unique from everyone else, and I think you just nailed it. I don't even have to ask that now.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's like, let's think of, like, I think we've all had those dark moments where, like, maybe somebody angered us so much that maybe we were having some really dark and terrible thoughts, and maybe every human being has the potential for madness or murder. You know,
well, I think everybody has the it in them. I mean, I'm like that too. Like, it's funny because I always joke around when I'm at work, and I'm like, man, if anybody's seen like what was in my head with some of these customers that like treated us like shit, they'd be frightened. Like, they would be nice because like they don't even know like what's going on in my head right now. Like, I think everybody has that in them. They're just afraid to admit it's there, or, you know, B, let anybody know, because then they're going to think you're, psycho or crazy or this shit or that shit. No, that's ridiculous. Everybody has that nature in them. You know, everybody has that part of their brain. So, I mean, it's great to hear people actually embrace it rather than just cover it under the rug, you know.
Oh, yeah, there's something very primal about that, that we all have that kind of, like, side to ourselves that might rear its ugly head in the right or the wrong situation, like. But as an actor, you kind of get to embrace your negative and positive emotions and kind of give them free rein within your acting. So that's kind of fun. But yeah, I maybe have like a slightly different acting philosophy than other actors do. I have read Michael Caine's book on film, I think 4 or 6 times, though. So I think Michael Caine and his acting philosophy is probably pretty close to the best acting philosophy as well, But then I think also you have to bring in your own style, and you have to bring in your own method as well, and can't really be such a slave to other people. You'd be surprised how many amazing actors have not had formal acting training. Like, I was just reading about Heath Ledger, who's a fantastic actor. He said, he never took acting lessons really starting out. Every mistake he's ever made is on film.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's the best way to learn. Like, I am in, I have 96, 97 IMDb credits right now, and I learned a lot about acting by acting in movies, by doing it.
Well, there's no better training than hands-on, I mean, that's kind of like...
Yeah, it's like hands-on. It's like my Italianness. Like, Italian people were all about, like, you want to be an actor? And go out and be an actor. Just do things. Live your life with abandon. Live your life with passion. If there's something you want to do, just go out there and do it. Don't talk about doing it. Just do it. Talk less, do more. That's my advice for everybody.
That's great advice. I mean, I wish people did more of that. Not when I know you're doing a lot of acting, but like, what do you do when you're not acting? Like, what's the hobbies that you're into?
Well, I'm not acting. I'm talking about acting on a podcast. Okay.
I'm okay with it.
And I'm reading scripts and I'm emailing people. Acting is it's like a full-time obsession, really. It's it's not a part-time job. It's a full-time obsession. So you're always like networking. You're always going to film festivals. You're always publicizing your movies and stuff. But I also do some photographic artsy like modeling. I'm also a professional tarot card reader.
I was going to get into that. Like, how did you get into tarot? I was reading about you. How do you get into tarot card reading? Like, what?
Well, it's just something that naturally I was attracted to at a young age, and I've been doing for a very long time since I was like a kid. So I do that professionally. I travel all around the place. I travel quite a bit, both as an actress, doing horror conventions and acting in films, and also as a professional tarot card reader. I get booked for gigs. And then I go to like different states and such, different parts of the world, and I read tarot cards at different kinds of private events and stuff. I don't post a lot of it on my social media, tarot card reading stuff, because a lot of it's private events that you couldn't just come to. Like, maybe I'm like at a very private party at somebody's mansion or whatever. I'm not going to post it online. I don't want people to come. It's invite only. So yeah, exactly, you're not going to crash that party. So I don't always post things that I'm doing when it pertains to that, because it's like a lot of times at people's private residences, they don't want us taking pictures, things like that. But I'm always doing that kind of stuff. And I've been typecast to a certain degree, but I enjoy the typecast as a gypsy fortune teller type character. I think I've been a gypsy fortune teller type character, or witch, or Satanist in maybe 15 films or so, because of my normal, my regular vocation of being a professional reader. You know,
yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I mean, I did see that, in fact, you are, kind of, you have so many credits in that. I mean, how do you prepare to, like, play, say, a witch? Do you shadow a coven, or, I mean, do you just draw that from the things you've seen, growing up, or, I mean, how do you prepare for any role? I mean, you have a unique style, but
anything that's like a witch or fortune teller and stuff like that, I would say I've always had interest in what is occult and esoteric. I would say, like, my knowledge and skill set of the occult is much higher than average.
So you just bring that to the table and just play off
of
that?
Yeah, I'm very knowledgeable. Like, if you look at my bookshelves and stuff at home, I am very knowledgeable of, like, Satanism, voodoo, Wicca, paganism, Aleister Crowley, Anton LaVey, everybody, along those lines, I've gone to Jamaica, New Orleans, and met a lot of people in the voodoo community, and things like that,
Are you able to cast a spell to make people listen to my show?
Oh, that would cost a lot of money.
Okay, I guess that's not going to happen.
That stuff doesn't come cheap. I think it would involve probably me killing a goat. I really like goats. I'd hate to kill one.
Well, I don't want goat death on my hands, so I guess we'll just wing it. I got one for you.
You don't want goat's blood on your hands.
No, not for the.
I'd have to go find some black goat named Philip.
Not just for my shitty show ratings.
Yeah, I know. I'm just kidding.
Hey, I believe in the paranormal and things, and I'm sure you probably do too. Being that they call it. What is your most fascinating paranormal experience? I know I've shared some. Do you have one? I mean, I'm just assuming, but I have several, and I just was curious. Do you have one that you could share with us?
Well, I've had some stuff where I've been in, like, haunted houses and stuff, and then from. I'm going to say this, and this might be a little controversial, but I'll say it anyway. But I've explored a lot of different religions and forms of spirituality, and from what I've seen, voodoo and Santeria seem to be the ones that resonate and have this uncanny kind of thing where just, like, all these weird coincidences happen that can't be coincidences, and then just everything kind of just falls in line,
Yeah.
More than anything else, and voodoo and Santeria are very similar to Catholicism, but kind of more of a mystical version. They're not pagan religions, which people think they are. They're monotheistic.
I never knew that. That's interesting.
Yeah, everybody has a false idea of them, and they get a really bad
Is it
rap.
just because all the shit you see from Hollywood growing up? Like, maybe that's why people think it's a...
Oh, yeah, exactly right. I think if you went to New Orleans and you went on the voodoo tour, went to the voodoo museum and hung out with everybody, you would realize that practicing voodoo and Santeria is pretty similar to just being Catholic, deep down inside, but much more mystical and kind of a little crazier. Like Catholic, but we get to dance with snakes now. But more exciting now.
And you're not fucking 7-year-old boys in the ass, I assume.
Yeah, I don't think that happens with voodoo. We're so busy. People in the voodoo are probably so busy dancing with snakes and having a good time that they don't really need to do things like that. They're not repressed. Voodoo and Santeria are not like repressive, religions. They're very much like you're embracing the body, you're embracing sensuality. Snakes are like a symbol of wisdom, much like in Genesis with Adam and Eve and going to the tree of knowledge and the serpent,
That's fascinating. I didn't realize there was that much depth to it. Like, I mean, I think it maybe is just because of all the shit that I've seen growing up, and I would just assume it was like, oh, you're going to make a doll and you're going to kill somebody or something. Like, I didn't realize there was so, much depth to that. It's interesting.
Oh, yeah, and there's like a lot of praying to the saints. There's a lot of reverence for God. I think they acknowledge the Pope, I'm sure they would all love to go to the Vatican. I went to the Vatican 2 years ago. I'm sure the average person that's into voodoo or Santeria would love to go to the Vatican. Yeah, there's more similarities with them and Christians than people realize, and you don't realize that until maybe you go to New Orleans or you go to Jamaica or maybe you go to Haiti and you kind of really meet people and you explore, and people that really, were raised in that kind of tradition and stuff. Yeah, just horror movies and stuff always make it seem pretty far out. But they make everything seem pretty far out. Even just being like a Christian, like a Catholic, like the only movies that you ever saw, about Catholicism were like Amityville Horror and The Exorcist,
Yeah.
you would get a pretty weird, or like The Omen.
Oh yeah, that's a good example.
It gives you kind of like a weird idea, about things.
Kind of a skewed, viewpoint, I guess.
Yeah, but I love all those movies anyway.
I do too. Oh, don't even get me started. I'm a sucker for any possession film for sure.
Yeah, but they're all like really, really cool movies. I would love to do a movie that delved into voodoo or Santeria or even like the cool aesthetic nature of Catholicism. Like the movies that are horror movies that have like a religious element. A lot of times are really interesting and cool. Yeah,
I mean, especially with what I think you could bring something very interesting to the table that I think people aren't really so much, had seen before. I think it's a good idea. Maybe that should be your next film.
Maybe so. And and when I play a gypsy or fortune teller, I bring a very authentic performance into that, which is why I get cast in that. Because it is something I'm knowledgeable of, so I don't like to do anything that if somebody was a practitioner of fortune telling, tarot, crystal ball gazing, or witchcraft, wouldn't think is authentic.
Yeah, I mean,
I like it to look real.
That's great. I mean,
on many levels.
Is there a role that you haven't played yet that you'd like the opportunity to? I mean, it sounds like you have a lot of different things like witches and things that you get typecast in. But what is one thing that you haven't played yet that you really would like to sink your teeth into?
I really would like to see women having something like where we have our own iconic murderer. Or something. I think we embrace the masculine dark side so often with Jason, Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger. We really need something like a movie that really embraces the dark side within women.
That is an untapped resource. It's funny you mention that. You don't really think about it until you bring it up, and yeah, that is true. We don't have like a franchise killer that is a woman. I mean, I would be attuned to that. I think that'd be cool for sure.
Yeah, so if anyone's listening, totally cast me as that franchise killer. I would really like to be part of the franchise, and I would also like to, be in a movie killing people. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome, man. That's great. That's a great answer.
Call me.
Have you encountered any? You heard it. Call her first, because she's gonna totally knock that shit out of the park.
I'll help you work on the script and everything too. We'll do it, man.
Sweet.
Yeah, there hasn't really been a movie that has done that or really gone there. I think we just think so much about there being this dark side in men that we forget that there's also this dark side in women. Women sometimes, as a gender, we get put on this pedestal where everybody thinks we're so cute and innocent or whatever. But I'm not cute and innocent. Well, maybe I'm a little cute, but definitely not innocent. I can kill people.
You heard it here first. We have a killer.
Yeah.
We have the next franchise woman killer here. So you heard it first. The Balls from Ellwood show. Don't forget that.
Out of the box and kind of coming up with original ideas here.
Hey, have you ever encountered any jealousy from other actors, and how do you handle that when people are kind of shitty toward you?
Well, there's a lot of jealousy within the whole acting profession because deep down inside we're all narcissists. Being an actor is pretty much saying to the world, look at me. Right?
Yeah,
that's what acting is. It goes back to being a kid and you're like, Mom, Dad, look at me, look. But you're doing that to the whole world.
I mean, is there any air of competition too? Does that play a part?
Absolutely, there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of jealousy. Because everybody wants to be busy and they want to be working and they want to be in movies. And sometimes we all go through these slow periods and other people are working and then somebody else isn't working. So there's a huge amount of jealousy. There's a huge amount of hate that you get from people, envy. Italians, we call it the malocchio, the evil eye. That is the envy of others. Italians believe that the malocchio, or evil eye, can be sent to you by a witch or strega, or it can be given to you just bad energy inadvertently from someone being jealous or envying your life.
Huh.
That it sends bad energy to you. And I do really think that totally exists in the acting profession, probably every profession. It's so hard to be successful in making your way in life without probably annoying someone. Someone's success sometimes reminds other people of their own failures. And instead of, and we should really not be thinking that way. We should be surrounding ourselves with successful people and trying to learn from them and network with them, to kind of push ourselves to be more successful,
Yeah.
But, if you're a confident person, you push other people up with you. If you're not a confident person, you put other people down. Think of that always in life. Next time somebody puts you down, they're not a confident person. They're not happy in their life, If they're jealous of you, they're not confident. They're not a happy person,
Yeah, you have to have
more
that
about
mindset.
them than it is about you, ultimately,
Yeah, you have to have that mindset because then it almost diffuses them even getting to you. I mean, I'm the kind of person I don't mind if people like knock on me because then that takes away from that affecting people that it may actually really get to. Like it doesn't. I've been so used to it my whole life growing up. It affects me zero. So like I'd rather somebody do it to me than do it to somebody that's actually going to take it seriously and become affected. So I mean I'd prefer that.
Well, you know what they say, what is Oscar Wilde, who I love Oscar Wilde, the only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about.
That's true. There's no such thing as bad publicity. I say it all the time.
Oscar Wilde said that one too. Yeah, well, that's the thing, is people are talking about you. That's the thing with art. People, like if you look at a painting or you look at somebody's art performance, like, in a film, you think you should really hate it or you should love it. But if you feel nothing, that's the biggest insult. So you as an actor, people really just embrace you and just hate you and your acting. Like people, sometimes hate on William Shatner. Sometimes that's a kind of success, And then if people really love you and love what you're doing and think that you're just the most amazing actor that ever was, I don't know, like Helen Mirren or something like that, that's another kind of success, But you don't want to be the kind of person that just nobody ever talks about, because then you're not going to go anywhere in life at all.
I agree. Film is like that with me. Like, I know most people, they just are like, I loved it or I hated it. Like, anything that elicits any sort of emotion to me, I think is a success and not a failure. Like, I won't, like, I think as a movie, if a movie's bad, but it's just entertaining, like, I think it's a total success. Like, that's why I love B movies so much and different indie films and things. That's why I'm more drawn to that. Like, it seems more real and more like, like grassroots to me. Like, I feel very hollow watching big budget Hollywood mainstream movies at this point. Like, I can't. Yeah, I mean, I'll watch a couple here and there, but to me, they just kind of have no soul to me anymore. Like, I love finding new foreign films to watch, and I love finding new indie films to watch and low budget films to watch, because that's the kind of thing that actually really hits home and resonates to me and brings elicits a response from me. I think it's like that with as well.
Well, I would agree, and I would say, to me, I think the B-rated horror genre is what punk rock used to be.
Absolutely.
It's daring, anything goes. We can really just
exciting.
We can experiment,
Yeah, because you never know what's coming next.
Yeah, you never know what's coming next. You never know what kind of crazy movie. Like my crazy movie right now is Attack of the Killer Chickens, the movie. That's what I'm doing. And Lloyd Kaufman's been pretty punk rock, working on Shakespeare's Shitstorm.
Yeah, we should get into that.
Daring, crazy movie.
How was your time on that? I mean, I don't want to gloss past that. You actually were actually in the movie.
Yeah, I'm in the movie. I was on set, I think, 4 days for the movie. And so what do I have to say about it? Well, it was cool to finally work under Lloyd with him directing me. That was my first trauma movie. Everybody always thinks I've done a lot of trauma movies because I'm in so many movies with Lloyd. I think Lloyd and I must act in 10, 12 movies where we both have small parts or cameos that they've had us come out and do.
Yeah.
Because of our names and whatever. And that first movie we were both in together was I Spill Your Guts, which is my first IMDb credit, but my second film that I ever actually did. And so everybody kind of assumed that I'd already been in trauma movies because they've known I've worked with Lloyd a whole bunch of times. But this is my first trauma that I've ever done. And, and Lloyd's this dude. He's in his 70s, but he's still really pushing the envelope. He's a very unconventional person, really taking some risks and doing some really crazy things on film. He's definitely embracing that whole punk rock thing. And Lloyd pops up in my film, Attack of the Killer Chickens, the movie, which actually opened up Trauma Dance last summer. Trauma Dance is Lloyd Kaufman and Trauma's film festival they do every year, which is really amazing. I submitted my short film, Attack of the Killer Chickens, which was the proof of concept for my feature that I'm working on right now. Lloyd loved it. He wanted to be in the feature. He's been extremely supportive of Attack of the Killer Chickens because I know he feels like it kind of really embraces that whole like daring and wild and crazy kind of horror movie that he's so known for himself too. Because we got to encourage ourselves and each other to really kind of push the envelope and kind of go out there and do some daring things in the genre. So it's great to work with Lloyd. I'm going to say something interesting about being on set of a Trauma film, and I actually emailed him this last night. I said to him, being on set was very interesting because here we were, here I was, and so many of the actors that he had cast in the film, were gay, were transgender, were people that had probably been bullied in grammar school and high school, or maybe people that are even thought of as outcasts to a certain degree, and they all kind of came together and were extremely dedicated and loyal to Lloyd and to Trauma and to making this movie. And I think almost Lloyd does kind of pick these really smart, creative, talented people that are a little off-center and that are a little unique and talented,
That's actually always what's drawn me to Lloyd and Trauma. I mean, I've always been an outcast my whole life, and I always felt like Trauma was that place where you could go and you could be anybody you want and you'll be accepted and everybody will be cool. And I mean, that's also a big reason why I became heavily into the Stern Show, because like he celebrates people like that rather than, he'll take people that nobody cared about that are that way, and then he turns them into superstars, which would have never happened otherwise because people look down on that in society. So like those kind of people I hold very dear because like I've always been an outcast, and I wouldn't have the opportunities now if if I wasn't if there wasn't people like that.
Oh, exactly right. And this also comes from a very compassionate place too. Like Lloyd always has a lot of nice things to say about everybody. He's always very complimentary to everyone. He really brings everybody together with that sense of community. When we were on set, a lot of people made friendships that I'm sure will be lasting friendships. There's very much a sense of community among the cast on the set of Shitstorm that I don't think you get it with a lot of films. Lloyd is a very intelligent man, but also a very accepting person. And yeah, he does find the uniqueness in people and in actors and brings that into his films, knowing that that's going to really, I think, bring out the best in people and bring out the best in his film medium,
Absolutely.
Without a doubt. And that's like, the people that act in his films are very similar to the fans of his films.
Well, that's definitely true. There's definitely a correlation there for sure.
Absolutely. It's like you're almost like watching yourself in a Trauma film to a certain degree,
I've always felt that way.
The people in the movies are very relatable. They're people that you would know. They're people that you would hang out with.
Exactly.
And then if you follow Trauma enough, maybe one day it'll be you. You'll be in one.
Yeah, I still kick myself, man. He wanted me to be in a cameo at Shitstorm, and I couldn't make it. Now I'm just I'm hoping maybe they could come out of retirement and do Toxie 5, and maybe I could.
Yeah, he said this would be his last film. I think. He's got grandkids and he's got things going on that he wants to move on with. See what happens. I want to say, here's a little side note. Lloyd claims this is his last movie, Shitstorm, and I'm grateful to be on set 4 days. And I was in Herschel Gordon Lewis's final film, Blood Mania.
Yeah, he was just a pioneer. I loved it.
Oh, yeah, he was like 85 at that time. So it's great to be, it's a great honor for me to be involved with two directors who have been great innovators for the whole B-grade genre. Very different directors to work with, very different people, but both, extremely exciting individuals. Herschel Gordon Lewis and Lloyd Kaufman,
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, it all is for the greater good. It's all, to our community and our genre. But I got an interesting thing I wanted to ask you. What's a fun fact about Genoveva your fans may not know about you?
A fun fact about me?
Yes, that nobody would know about you until now.
No. Well, if nobody knows, there might be like a reason. Like that might be by design. Like.
Good point.
Okay. Well, let's see. I am a pretty creative person, so I'll go into all the creative things that I do because some people think like all I do is act. But I act, I write, I direct. What else do I do? I also paint. I'm also a professional tarot card reader and stuff. So I have like a lot of different facets. I do some artistic kind of modeling stuff. So it would seem like, a lot of the time I am doing something pretty creative. It's like not too often that I'm not doing something kind of that delves into a creative avenue. Right now I'm working on that film, Attack of the Killer Chickens. I'm writing that, I'm directing it, and I'm also one of the stars of it.
Oh, that's a job in and of itself then.
Oh yes, I'm involved with that on like every level. And then I have a bachelor's degree. Not that many people realize that. I was English with a minor in journalism, and who else had that degree? Bishop Gordon Lewis was also an English major.
That's amazing.
Believe it or not.
That's interesting.
He is interesting. I mean, we discussed that when I worked with him. So so I do come from this creative writing background. And then I've written for the UK horror scene, Malevolent magazine, and I'm currently writing for the Digital Dead. So I'm always writing and doing that sort of thing, and then also writing a bunch of different kinds of films and stuff. So I have that kind of like that whole thing going on. So I delve into a lot of different areas in my creativity, and then acting is one of them. And then also, I guess a lot of people might not realize, they look at my IMDb, they look at my repertoire, and they see me making guest appearances. Yeah, I have about 96 IMDb credits, but let's remember that's 96 credits since 2012.
Ah.
It hasn't really been that long,
Yeah, that's an incredible amount of things in that period of time, for sure.
And mostly they've been features. I do very little short films. Only once in a while if something pops up that I really want to do. But I like to really do feature films more so because they get better exposure, they get distribution, they're a little bit more, they get out there more. The public sees them more, they get worldwide distribution, get more notoriety, they have a wider audience, and that's my work ethic. I put myself into acting like 100%. And I really, am extremely committed to it. So it's like it's a full-time obsession,
Yeah, you were talking about your body of work earlier. I mean, has there ever been a part in your, in your career this far, like, that you regret taking?
Oh, this is a part I regret taking. No. I make pretty quick decisions about parts. I can't think of any one I really regret taking. No. I've definitely rejected parts. Even though I have that many IMDb credits, I have rejected parts. Quite a few. If I just don't like the subject matter, if I don't think it's a part that I want to do, if it doesn't fit into my career path and where I want to see myself in like 5 years, or something like that,
Yeah.
Because, it's important, I think, sometimes to think in your life, whether you're an actor or anything else, like, where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 10 years? Here I am, making guest appearances. I was in the United Kingdom in October, signing autographs in Birmingham. I have been doing guest appearances for a few years already, which is pretty good for someone who's only been acting professional since 2012.
Oh,
I've been very ambitious, and I've been very organized in what I've been doing.
That should speak volumes, though. I mean, that should show people that you are, in fact, how hardworking and how dedicated and just how how incredible you are. So, I mean, that right there should make you feel good. I mean,
oh, for sure. Thank you very much. Yeah. It shows that I'm putting myself into this 100%. It is an obsession. And you can't get into acting unless, like, you're willing to make sacrifices and make it a priority,
Yeah, that should show everybody that you do, in fact, take things, you put that ahead of everything else. I kind of have a difficult question for you. In this age of the Me Too movement and those kind of things, I mean, have you ever had a director get creepy with you, like, or any sort of kind of, like, nonsense like that?
Absolutely, happens all the time in the industry.
Yeah, it's funny you
Happens to
say that.
everybody.
I ask a lot of people this, and it surprises me because I'm like, I have yet to find one where somebody said, no, nobody's ever did that to me. It's always, everybody's always had it, and it's an epidemic. And I mean, can you tell us a little bit about that? I mean, it just blows my mind.
I'm gonna say, like, it's unfortunate that, like, we have certain parameters of behavior and normal jobs, like in corporate America and stuff, and some, unfortunately, people in film and in the show business don't bring that level of professionalism into their lives and show business that people have in corporate America. You have, like, your guidebook when you're in corporate America of the sexual harassment policy and your code of conduct for working in this workplace. And maybe we should have that when we work in show business to remind everybody that everybody is a human being that you need to treat with compassion, because not everybody, got the memo on that one.
It doesn't sound like a lot of people got the memo.
Yeah, no, it's true, because if you work in a corporate job, you get, like, a little handbook, like, when you start, and they make you read and whatever. And most people, and they sometimes even have seminars on that. But for whatever reason, in show business, people really, it's like, it's just, it is, like, very much this punk rock, anything goes kind of thing. But at the same time, when it comes to, people having human rights and, showing compassion and professionalism to each other, like, sometimes that can fall on the wayside for people in a way that it doesn't for people that are in corporate America, because you start your job working, at whatever, at Google or something, and you have, like, your little handbook to go back to, and you know exactly what the guidelines are for your conduct. And, maybe we need to really kind of revisit that a little bit more so that everybody's on the same page and we understand exactly how to behave. Maybe part of the problem is that so many people in creative worlds, in the creative genre and show business, have never had jobs outside of that realm, so they don't even understand what is normal conduct.
That's a good point. I almost wonder maybe if that is in fact the problem. I mean,
that could be really part of the problem, because I have worked in corporate jobs, and I've worked in HR, and I've worked in a variety of different industries and stuff. Like, for a couple of years I kind of hated it, so I left. But but I don't know but I guess it makes you, like, sometimes a better person to at least have that experience, even if you didn't like it. To have that to kind of go into. But a lot of these people, they graduate from school, or they go right into acting or directing, and they've never had, like, a real job, in quotes, and they've never had maybe a conventional job, and maybe they don't understand how the rest of the world live and what the parameters are living in this creative realm when there are so little rules. But in the end, there are certain rules, and a lot of them are, like, how we treat people and, your professionalism. Obviously, no man or woman should ever be the victim of sexual misconduct or harassment. I think men are also victims of this more often than we realize as well.
That's a good point. That's something you never you hear a lot about, but I'm sure it happens. I mean, yeah, that doesn't seem like
I've heard stories about a lot of men being sexually harassed, by women, by men, by who knows, within the parameters of working in the film industry and other industries as well. I'm sure it happens. It just probably doesn't get talked about as much. Like, the whole Me Too movement hasn't really delved into all the men that are probably harassed as well. I'm sure it's so many people in the industry have had these things happen. And certainly can happen to you in different facets of, like, corporate America and other avenues. I would say, I'm going to go as far as to say that sexual harassment for women is such a commonplace thing that it's not even something that just happens in show business. It's something that happens probably in every sector. I think if you got a lot of women that work in different jobs, a lot of them have been sexually harassed. Probably not as much as in show business, because we don't have the guidelines and rules in that field as much. But I'm sure a lot of people in other fields have had that happen too. I don't know. I guess, like, people in positions of power sometimes take advantage of that power. I'm sure a lot of women, have had that happen to them. And in the 60s and 70s, I think it was acceptable behavior, and now it's becoming less and less acceptable behavior, which is a good thing, for certainly that we're evolving in that. But yeah, I think pretty much everybody has been, just about every woman, I'm sure, probably has been sexually harassed at some point in her life.
Yeah, it's disheartening to hear. Hopefully we can evolve into, someday where that's not happening. I mean, but moving along.
We have to talk about it. I guess that's the first step. We have to talk about it. We have to have guidelines in place. I think a lot of men and women maybe don't realize that what is sexual harassment and what is sexual misconduct, and at what point are they crossing a line. And we have to, and how do we learn that? We have to learn that through discussions.
And knowledge,
we have to learn that by having dialogue.
Yeah, that's the only thing that's probably really going to change people's way of thinking. So yeah, I definitely agree. But moving along to something a little more.
A lot of these people that are harassing women and maybe not being appropriate, some of them maybe don't even realize what they're doing. They have to, they probably don't even understand.
Well, because they were raised that way.
It's ignorance.
Yeah, they're raised in ignorance.
For some of them. Some of them it's ignorance, and some of them obviously, if you're raping somebody and everything, that's wrong. But some people, I think, are just so ignorant of what they're doing, that they don't really realize that they are falling into the realm of sexual harassment. And that's why we have to have discussion on this, and that's why we have to really address it directly, so everybody's on the same page. Education is the key. We can't be ignorant forever, and we can't be afraid to talk about it.
Yeah, I think that's the most important part, not being afraid to have them discussions and talk about the hard things. I mean, that's the only thing that's in fact going to bring forth any sort of change. But,
because people nowadays used to cover up these things, people would get raped, people would get molested, people would be sexually harassed or sexually assaulted, and people felt like it was something dirty and they couldn't talk about it. And that just, when we keep things like a secret like that, it just leads to things happening more and more.
It festers and it becomes more of it just triggers an epidemic, and then more people, it just spreads like a virus, and it's horrible.
Exactly right. So there you go. So that's my opinion on that. Certainly it happens. I don't like it when it happens, but unfortunately, I guess is the reality of the world. Hopefully, at some point it won't be. So shoot with your next question.
You've been to, you mentioned you've been to several cons over the years, and I'm sure you meet a bevy of interesting people. I wanted to ask you, what's the weirdest thing that a fan has ever requested of you?
Well, I haven't had anybody have me sign their penis or anything like that.
Oh, that's weird.
Nobody requested anything like that bizarre. I'm sure some people do get requests like that. I'm trying to think. I can't really think of anything too weird that's happened. Everybody has been pretty good, that I can tell. I go to conventions. I feel like there's a lot of love for the genre and for the films that I've been in. People really enjoy how good they are, or really enjoy how bad they are. And it's nice to get that feedback from fans as to which films they enjoy. I haven't really had negative opinions, or negative experiences with people. One of the things that I enjoy the most is I have a large body of work of doing 96 films in a short period of time, and I like to see which films people know me for. Because sometimes it surprises me, who knows these films that I've done. I was in England, and some guy in his 20s was like, "Oh, I really liked you in Haunting Day." And I was like, "Haunting Day?" I'm like, "That's this short film I did in Long Island, in 2012. I'm surprised anyone in England even knows about that."
That's gotta kind of feel cool though, man, because that's so obscure. You're like, wow, this dude really knows his shit. Or how?
Yeah, I'm surprised anybody in England would even know about that. Yeah, and then and then other films, when I was down south, a lot of people in North Carolina, when I was at Mad Monster Party, really enjoyed me in a movie called Hunters, and it was good feedback because they were like, "Oh man," they're like, "You're not Southern? We heard your accent in the movie, and we just assumed you were Southern." And I was like, "Well, that's a pretty good compliment that I spent so much time doing my Southern accent that you actually thought I was Southern."
Yeah, there you go. That's awesome.
Yeah, because some people that weren't Southern didn't think maybe my accent was as perfect as it could have been, because the guy told me he wanted my accent, the director, Adam Ellwood, he wanted me to sound like Scarlet from Gone with the Wind. So I watched a lot of Gone with the Wind over and over and over again to try to imitate Vivian Lee's accent.
Yeah.
And some people were like, that sounds fake or whatever. But then, like, the Southern people were like, no, we really thought that was your accent.
No, that's perfect.
We thought that was really what you're going to sound like when we met you. So I was like, oh, there you go.
Well, yeah, that's a high praise for that, man. Hey,
yeah, and they liked that movie, Hunters. Hunters was probably one of my most risque films that I've done. Hunters. It's by Adam Ellwood. And it's a film, like, we're just, like, it's extremely brutal. I think there's some X-rated moments in it. I'm not in any X-rated moments, I don't think, but there are some X-rated moments. I do have some woman tied to the wall named Mel Heflin. I think she's naked and torturing at one point, though.
Well, that sounds like a party.
Which was fun at the time.
I might have to check that one out for sure.
Yeah, well, you know, that's like my normal Saturday night anyway. That
that's just like if somebody had a camera in your place, you know, does it put on a film?
That's what I do. You know?
Hey, has been
like I can do that on film. I already do that normally. But I had a fun time with Hunters. I play Edna, and it was probably one of my most disturbing characters, and it's definitely one of my most risque films. It's one of those films that is not for everybody. It can be hard to watch. It is extremely brutal horror film, more than most. And then a lot of films that I've done have been like these lighthearted horror comedies that like people like James Balsamo have directed. You know, people don't realize, but horror does really encompass a lot of subgenres. Like I do horror comedies. I do these crazy, disturbing horror movies. Sometimes you do like a thriller horror movie or a dramatic horror film, you know, or sci-fi horror. You know, so it really encompasses a lot of different subgenres. It can be really, really challenging. But, you know, I always find a lot of fun meeting the fans, and I also have a lot of fun at the conventions, making friends with all of the people that are guests with me. Like, we all kind of become buds. I would say everybody in the horror genre, you know, we're like a family. You know, you see the same people at conventions all the time, and we're family, you know?
That's how I look at it. Like, you know, I if I find somebody that's into the same kind of stuff I'm into, I'm like, Legion, you're one of us, you know? Like, it's more easy for me to, like, I seek out and talk to people that are like-minded than, like, you know, somebody that doesn't like the kind of things we're in, you know?
Oh, yeah, and, you know, it's fun going to a horror convention because you know you have at least one thing in common with everybody there, which is your love for horror movies.
And it's such an intricate part of my life and everybody's life that's in it. I mean, it's something that people hold very near and dear and take it very seriously. I mean, you wouldn't think that if you were like a mainstream looking at us, but like, I mean, it's a way of life for me and a lot of people. So, I mean, but that being said,
and I want to clarify what a B-rated movie is. People don't realize it, but B-rated movies encompass a pretty big thing. It could be a movie I shot for $5,000 in my backyard, or it could be a movie that cost a couple $1 million.
Yeah, that's a very good point that a lot of people don't seem to get. They think it's like a movie that's like $5, and that's not. A lot of B movies are, in fact, very well, you know, funded and have a very good budget, and then that's something that kind of goes along the wayside in the term. It kind of loses itself.
Yeah, people don't understand. Like somebody like Vincent Price did B-rated films, but like a movie like Dr. Fives, you know, what was the budget on that? Probably like $1 million in the 1970s.
Yeah, that's huge.
Small budget of a film.
No,
you know?
don't even get me started about Dr. Fives.
B-rated. And the B-rated movies, here's some trivia here, were actually first developed to be part of double features to warm you up for the A-rated movie.
Mm-hmm.
So John Wayne doing westerns was a B-rated actor.
Well, yeah,
you don't realize that.
Yeah,
westerns
a lot of people don't
B-rated.
realize that. Yeah, that was like kind of a, you know.
Yeah, spaghetti westerns were low-budget movies. Like you can make a western for like almost no money, you know, and they could be fantastic, especially if you get somebody as wonderful as John Wayne in your movie. That's a B-rated movie. The B-rated movie was a lower-budget film that warmed you up for the A higher-budget film. But it's still a pretty high-quality film. And make no mistake, you know, Vincent Price did a lot of B-rated movies, but Vincent Price made a lot of money doing B-rated movies, you know?
Yeah, I don't think he'd been offended by the term B-movie for sure.
Oh, no, and you know, and he was making really good money doing what he did. I think and Vincent Price, I don't think ever really turned down a role because all those roles paid. He didn't. He never like turned down a paying role. No. He wasn't doing it as like charity. He made a lot of money. He was a good businessman. He knew what he was doing.
Absolutely. Hey, have you ever felt that being an actress has had negative effects on your life or relationship?
I think it can. I think it can be very challenging with dating and relationships because you do get a lot of attention, and it can be hard. You're in the public eye, and I think some people can find that a little intimidating and stuff. And then sometimes I have a hard time with dating just because, like, in relationships, that sometimes my schedule can vary so much. Like, oh, I'm going to be gone in England shooting movies for the next 2 weeks. Later, Gator. So, like, things like, or I go to a convention for, like, the weekend, and, and my schedule can kind of vary, like, a bit and be a little unconventional. So I think some people can find that a little intimidating or whatever. So, what are you going to do? It can definitely pose us some challenging. And then acting has to be such a priority and such an obsession that some people maybe get a little jealous of how focused you are on that, and that the thing you're focused on isn't really them.
That's a good. That's a good answer. Who do you?
So it can be. It is very challenging and difficult in some respects. Yeah. I think acting can be like a lonely profession for a lot of people. It can be very difficult to find like a life partner that accepts what you're doing and all the attention that you will get. And let's face it, horror is a very erotic genre.
So yeah, that's harder for people to accept, if they're not into that kind of thing, I would think.
Yeah, I think most of the actors and actresses are sex symbols to a degree, for sure, right? I
would definitely think so.
Sean,
whether people want to admit it or not.
Phil Jr., like we're all like sex symbols to a certain degree, to people, male or female.
Yeah, I agree. Like whether people want to admit it or not, it's just kind of how it is. So I mean. What? Who do you consider has supported you the most in your career thus far?
Who has supported me the most in my career? God. God has probably been the most consistent person in my life. That's consistent presence.
That's the most honest answer I think I've ever heard. That's good.
Yeah, because I can't really think of anybody else that would have been.
Well, I tell you what, I actually have...
My pet turtles have been really consistent.
Well, I tell you what...
But, they don't really have a choice.
I got one more...
They can't get out of their tank. What?
I got one more question before we wrap it up here. What do you consider thus far to be your best performance?
Oh, my goodness, my best performance. What is my best performance? You know what?
Is there one that stands out?
Everything I do, I think, is my best performance. Like, because it's so hard for me to say that because every character I play is so different. Like I'm doing dramatic horror, I'm doing horror comedy, I'm doing so many different things that I just feel like everything I do is like my best performance for that character and for that film. I always like to bring like the best of myself into everything that I do.
Let me ask you this.
I don't know if there's like a film that stands out in my mind as like being like the best film that I ever did, though.
Is there a character that, in the back of your mind that you feel like you'd like to revisit then? Like, is that the case?
I would always like to play like a witch again. I would love to be maybe be like a lead and have like a movie about me being a witch. And all my witchy things that I do.
Oh,
I want to be like Angelique from Dark Shadows and just have like a whole movie about me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I love Dark Shadows and I love Angelique. So something like that would be really great. To play like that kind of character in a feature film, I think would be a dream of mine,
That's exactly what I was looking for. But I tell you what, before we close the show out, I would like my listeners to be able to know where to find you at. So why don't you tell me a little bit about, why don't you plug a little bit about where to find you and the things that you got coming up and things that you would like them to check out. I would definitely like to hear about that.
Oh, definitely. Well, they can look me up on my website, which is www.genovevarossi.com. How do I spell that? GENOVEVAROSSI.com. I usually put my appearances and everything are down on there, and then probably more people like to check out your social media and your website, though. So I'm on Facebook, Genoveva Rossi. I'm on Instagram, Genoveva Rossi. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff. I didn't join Snapchat yet, but maybe one day I will. And then, and so you can find me on all these things. You can check out my website. I have a guest appearances coming up in October, the weekend before Halloween. I will be in Smithville, New Jersey, at their Zombie Walk. And then the weekend of November, I think, 2nd and 3rd, I'm going to be at a convention in New York City. So I'm really excited about that. And I have some other convention appearances, I think, coming up afterwards. Going to be shooting a whole bunch of movies, going to be directing my film. So check me out on social media and see updates on what's going on. And also check me out on IMDb. What is IMDb? International Movie Database.
And don't forget, her feature film coming up is Night of the Killer Chickens.
No, not. I'm sorry. That's a good one, though.
Attack of the Killer Chickens.
You came up with a good title, though, too. That would have been a good one. Maybe that'll be the sequel.
All right, awesome. Maybe that could be the second part.
That'll be the sequel. But because you're the first person that said that, that's a nice title too. But Attack of the Killer Chickens.
Yeah, don't listen to me,
folks. Sounds a lot like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Attack of the Killer Chickens. Wow, I don't know what the heck I was thinking. I think I had the.
Yeah, because the movie Attack of the Killer Chickens that kind of does embrace the whole ultra B-rated genre and really kind of like runs with it.
Yes.
The short film won 6 awards, and now we're making the feature. So look for it.
Attack of the Killer Chickens, not Night of the Killer Chickens. That's me being retarded. So just
Attack of the Killer Chickens, the movie. Will be coming out probably later this year. So.
Well, excellent. There you have it. Genoveva Rossi, thank you for being my guest. That was incredible. It was nice spending time with you. I wish you the best in all you do, and everybody out there, Kat, you need to check her out. Check out everything like you said, and please support this lady, man. She really cares about the horror genre, and goddamn it, we love her. So hopefully she'll be back and she could give us some updates here. The next time she's got some time. Other than that, I really appreciate you being a guest, and thanks for spending your time with us. Peace and love.
Well, thank you so much, Mike, and you did ask some really thought-provoking and interesting questions that I hadn't been asked before. So. Well,
thank you for being honest and the great answers. I appreciate people being candid, and I appreciate people being honest, and you are surely both. So there you have it. Genoveva, once again, Genoveva Rossi. Check her out, folks. And don't forget, Attack of the Killer Chickens, the movie. Check it out, cats. We'll see you next week. Exactly. This is the Balls from Ellwood show. I love you guys. Peace and love. Peace and love.
Thank you.
Listen to more New York Dolls.